Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'll be talking about punishing and unsafe situations you can be in and how you can, get out of those situations, maybe avoid getting into those situations, and also how to punish it if someone else does it. So as I said before, let's start off with all the unsafe situations you can be in. In Storm 4, just about everything you do can be unsafe because subs exist. For example, if I do a combo, right there, I'm unsafe for however many frames that animation was. Because since he subbed my attack, now I'm vulnerable. So after I attack, I'm in minus. Basically what I'm trying to say is, just about any attack that you don't hit or they sub, you're in minus. Or anything you whiff as well. Right now I'm in minus. I'm in minus. I try to indicate how long you have until you can guard. So until you can do the next action. After you do a combo, attack, jutsu, or whatever. So that all these simple actions take me quite a long time to recover from. Obviously you can cancel these recovery frames by doing other actions that I'll go on later in the video. But right now let's just focus on the basics. Just about everything you do puts you in minus. Next up we have dashing. Every time you dash into a guard, you're in minus. Now how can I show this? I will show this by me trying to block after I dash into the guard and the enemy attacking me. I'll put that into slow motion to show you which one of us gets out of our stun first. And you'll see that actually the person getting dashed at gets out of their stun first. Now this is not significant at all. It doesn't matter to you because you're at a safe distance anyways. You're this far away from the enemy after you dash into a guard. So it doesn't really matter that much. Except when you do an air dash. Now, situation's getting a bit more dangerous. You're very close to the enemy now. Now, let me just give you some frame data here. Not that it matters too much. After you dash into any guard, it takes you about 25 to 26 frames to recover. Now this is not a lot of frames. I don't know what this will be on 30 FPS, but on 60, it is 25 to 26 recovery frames. So I would assume, because you're halving the FPS, you are also halving the recovery frames. That's just me, I don't know. And the person who's guarding your dash has about 20 frames of recovery. Now this is 5 to 6 frames better than your recovery, which results to -5 or -6 frame advantage for you. Minuscule frame differences, frame advantages like 5 frames, 6 frames, doesn't matter too much in Storm 4. Now let's just take the average starter frames of my team right here. It's around the same for every character. I'll put it on the screen, I don't know what it is because I have to do this in editing. Now after you air dash, I'm not saying ground dash here because you gain neutral, like you're back in the safe space, relatively, after you dash into the guard. But it's a different story, as I said before, when you air dash. So back on point, after you air dash, you can guard after around 5 to 6 frames. Now this is faster than anyone can attack in the game, meaning you'll always be able to block after you air dash. However, since you have -5 frames or -6 frames in frame advantage, you can't actually attack them after you dash into their guard. If you both mashed at the same time after you dashed into their guard, the opponent will win. So the best choices here, before I get onto the cancels, are just guarding or simply walking away. Obviously the walking away is a bit more safer because you don't get put into guard pressure immediately. Both is plausible if we're talking in terms of frame data, unless the character has a longer range. Now let's move into the territories of jump guarding and how it's different from just ground guarding, like normal guarding. Let me just get the simple things over first. The person dashing into the guard, no matter if it's ground guard or air guard, will always have the exact same amount of recovery frames. However, the story is different for the person getting dashed at, aka the person guarding the dash. The recovery frames of the person who guards the dash is dependent on the y-axis of the player when they make contact. This rule is only applicable when the equation is y is smaller than forced landing frames height. Now what do I mean by that? It basically means anything under the height of where you can get forced landing frames. Let me show you what I mean. If I jump too high, I get forced landing frames, meaning this rule won't necessarily apply, since forced landing frames gives you the same amount of recovery frames every single time you do it. Well, the enemy does it to you. Meaning anything below that height will give you a separate rule. There, my opponent hit me at a certain height. It's not exact height, I don't know what height that is, but it definitely wasn't the forced landing frames height. If I slow that clip down, you'll see that I recover 1 or 2 frames after I hit the ground. This doesn't matter how high you are, as long as you're under the forced landing frames height. I already said that so many times, so I won't say it anymore. Doesn't matter how high you are, as soon as you land on the ground, 1 or 2 frames after, you will gain back control of your character. So if I show you again, 1 or 2 frames after I've landed on the ground, I recover. This brings us to something quite important. It's called short hop punish. This is basically when you try to time your jump just as they dash into you. This allows you to minimize the time between getting hit by a dash till landing. The shorter this time is, the faster you'll recover. So I'll try to get a really short hop here. Slowing the clip down right here, you can see that I'm no longer getting 20 frames of recovery, which is how long it normally is when you guard on the ground. Now with short hop punish, I timed the jump, so I just jumped off a little bit when my opponent hit my guard. So I almost fell to the ground immediately, giving me a very fast recovery. Now you can use this in your game as well, timing your jump guard to your opponent's dash. Now if we do some calculations here, I'll put the numbers on the screen, but last I remembered that a short hop punish is around 12 frames of recovery. Let's assume that you're frame perfect and you press attack as soon as you recover, which is not going to happen too many times, but let's just say that. Then you have your 12 frames of recovery, adding your attack, which is around 8 frames, meaning it's 20 frames till contact. Now the opponent recovers in 26-25 frames, giving you a 5-frame window of error to throw your attack. This all just comes out of you timing your jump just when they dash into you. But let's assume that you're human and you attack 1 or 2 frames after you recover. That'll still be 21-22 frames till you hit. And once again, that's less than 25-26 frames. Hopefully you understood that. If you didn't, make sure to ask me in the comment section below. I'll answer any questions about this topic. With that out of the way, let's move on to switching. So this is what it looks like. Takes you around that long, which is 34 frames. And next, onto landing. So what do I mean by landing? I just mean jumping, coming down. Jumping and coming down. Now I'll slow the video down completely to show you that you have 1 frame where you're not safe. This is what they mean when they say, oh, they got caught on landing frames. Well, it's only 1 frame. There's 1 singular frame when you land, you're unsafe. Maybe some of you can even see that in the video right now without slowing it down. But it's very small. Though, many people still get caught by this landing frame many times. Just by this 1 singular frame. Guard manipulation, also known as forced landing frames. Now this is when your guard gets hit by anything at a certain height. Around here. Around the double jump area. That's where you will get guard manipulated. As you can see, after I land, there's a long time before I can actually guard. As you can see, it doesn't activate at low heights. Only after you have double jumped or slightly over the first jump. So that's all of the basics of, unsafe situations. All of what I've shown in this video to this point are places where you're unsafe. So if you're questioning, oh, why did I get hit? It's because you were in one of these cases. Any attack, even air attack, has a longer stun because you have to fall. Which means these unsafe things you do will cause you to be unsafe. Hence why it's called unsafe situations. It explains itself pretty well. Now let's move on to counter. I didn't really put counter with the other ones because it has kind of 2 categories. It has active frames and also recovery frames. So active frames is when the counter will work. Within how long of a time period can your counter work? Now that comes to about 23-24 frames. This time frame where he is, white. Now the recovery frames are 36 frames. So quite a lot larger than your active frames and also a bit more than, switching and guard manipulation. Takes you about that long to recover. The whole counter process is around 59 frames. Well, we can just count out a second. Right, let's move on to how you can cancel these minus frames because they are very annoying. Let's first talk about attacks. How do you cancel this? All attacks can be cancelled by switching. No matter which stage of the attack you're in, you can switch whenever you want. You can even switch before you attack. So if you want to be safe, you can do this. Next is dashing. It doesn't matter which part of attack you're in, you can just dash. Doesn't matter. This will make you safe as well, and maybe even catch the enemy. For example, if they sub, there you go. No recovery frames, straight dashing. And lastly, there's countering. Also the same as dash, anytime you want. Now moving on to dashing. How do you cancel this little stun to put pressure on the enemy? Any chakra action you do will cancel the stun. Literally any chakra action. Could be an ult, could be chakra shuriken, you can even do it before. Jutsu. Cancel the dash stun immediately. Doing a jutsu isn't the safest thing you can... This is the worst example ever. Doing a jutsu, you know, isn't the safest thing ever. You have that recovery frames. Right. So after they sub, they can still attack you. How do you make that safer? Just switch. Same as after you air dash. There you go, putting pressure on the enemy. Now, this is actually guaranteed pressure because they are still in guard stun. Because remember, they have 20 frames of recovery. You have just reduced your one, maybe completely. I don't know, we'll have to look at the frames for that. But the result is you'll be faster than your opponent. By quite a lot. They'll either get interrupted by the shuriken, meaning you can put guard pressure on them, or you hit them with a jutsu. And you can be safe even if the jutsu gets interrupted. Same as on the ground. You can do this. Now with air jutsus, you can even do this. Or like that. I didn't actually mean to do that. I forgot to showcase counter. This is what it looks like. With a switch. So even if they attack you, you can punish them with a switch counter. And if they don't attack you, you won't get baited. And you're out. You can cancel recovery frames of jutsus by switching. Now you can also cancel the jutsu by cancelling the jutsu. Now I'm on Evo, that's why I cancel so late. If you're on base or anywhere else, you can cancel immediately. This only works for some characters. Like if you do a fireball, you're not going to be able to cancel that. So if you do have a cancel of a jutsu, then you can cancel that and be safe, removing all the recovery frames. Alright, with all the cancels done, we can move on to minus frame reductions. These are the things you can do to reduce your recovery frames to a point where you can be advantageous. Switching takes you quite a long time. 34 frames to be exact. What can you do to neglect that or reduce it actually? Hollow step movement. So you see this? When you hollow step like this, if you do that on the ground, you can get this movement. Meaning after you switch, you can reduce the frames of recovery by a long shot. Normally this is what it looks like. Takes you that long to guard. Now with hollow step movement, I can almost guard immediately. So when I say almost immediately, I mean cutting down from 34 frames to 10 frames. So you can guard pretty fast. This works the same with guard manipulation. See, I cancelled that 34 frames with hollow step movement down to 10. Another way you can cancel guard manipulation and switching is by ninja moving. After you switch, if I can actually switch, if you ninja move, it also cuts it down to about 10 frames. So what I'm trying to get at is, after you switch to any simple action, you'll cut the frames down, like jumping or just moving actually. Anything apart from standing still and doing absolutely nothing. As you can see right there, even guard manipulation. One more thing you can do to prevent guard manipulation is by doing a pill, which I just tried to do but failed. Like this, you will also reduce the frames down to around 10 or less, I don't know. Right, so I feel like we should talk about shurikens a little bit. So if you're doing it on the ground just straight up, there's a lot of, recovery frames. I'm not too sure how much it is, but all you need to know is enough for you to be in danger. Now this can be reduced when you jump shuriken. So now you see, it's a bit shorter, or still being very long. This is also the same as a forced landing frame stun, meaning you can also reduce it by hollow step movement. Like this. Ninja moving. Simply just moving. All of these reduce it down quite a bit. Now if you want to completely cancel those minus frames, you can just do any chakra action and they're gone. That's all excluding countering, which you can't actually do. You see? You have to actually ninja move and then do it. Unlike the other ones where you can do it immediately. And you can make it safe by switching. I did a juicy buffer by accident there. Now while playing, you might have seen your opponent do something like this, where you get more stun than they do. You might be thinking, how are they doing that? So how this works is, as long as they dash me in my startup frames, they will get pushed back further than I do. So here, let me explain startup frames. Now we have a few different types of dashes. You just have your normal dash, a charge dash, spark dash, Lastly, a turbo dash. Now all of these have different startup frames. The normal dash has 19 frames of startup. The charge dash has 51 frames of startup. But it is 20 frames until this, little burst. So it's not that different from a normal dash if you release it early. Next we have spark dash, which is actually 7 frames of startup. So this whole action takes about 7 frames, excluding your hit. So the hit, I'm not including that. But whatever comes after is the startup frames. That equates to 7. I'm not including the hit because everyone hits is different, and also you can, do it like this or like this. Now lastly, we have turbo dash. It has a whopping 0 frames of startup, meaning you can't get the pushback with a turbo dash. So if I show you in slow motion, it has absolutely no starter frames. As soon as you press the jump, after you press chakra, dash comes straight out, making it the fastest dash in the game. Not the speed, I meant the startup. So we won't be talking about turbo dashing, just the 3: spark dash, charge dash, and normal dash. Now for each of these, you just have to make sure that when they hit you with their dash, you are in your starter frames to your dash. Like that. There you go. I have less recovery frames than them. Now you can make this easier by doing a charge dash, because there's 51 frames for you to time. I don't even have to time that. The normal dash I might have to time, but a charge dash you can do it just, right here. He still gets bounced back more than me. Now spark dash is the hardest because it only has 7 frames. Like that. But it's a bit more difficult. Now back on countering. As I said before, there are 36 frames of recovery after the 23 frames of, active frames. Now, the way you can switch out is just by switching. Obviously, I'm on Evo, which means I can't do that. But even on Evo, if you just wait until the white bit's gone, and you try to switch, you still cancel most of the recovery frames. You see that I did it too early. So as soon as the white bit goes, switch. Or you can spam the switch button. It also works. But I prefer to do it, visually. Now, apart from that, you can also just, switch counter, which takes more timing to do to, pull it off. So it's just about who covers their tracks better. If you cancel more of your minus frames, you'll eventually come out on top, become more advantageous. The more you play, the more you understand what is safe, what is unsafe, and then leading you to respond however you would try to make yourself safe. And these are just some of the things I came up with while playing, watching other people, collect the data as well. But the moral of the story is keep playing, just play a lot, gain experience. You don't just grasp things like this in 2 minutes. It'll take you some practice. Because the first time learning this, you hear, okay, I'll do this, I'll do that. But in the match, you dash, oh, what do? You don't remember. So practice in training, 10 to 15 times. Do things like this. Like this, just cancelling out the things. Follow step movement. Instead of dashing into the guard, you can just cancel the dash, instead of having minus frames and having to deal with it. Cancelling the dash is also just another option. But as soon as these things become muscle memory, the better you're going to be at doing them in game. But there you go, that's about it for today's video. If I missed something that you know about, please let me know. Put it in the comments and help other people out, I guess. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.